Hello. This is an interesting one out of the Inception lecture series of the Metropolitan discipline, and I wonder if you have ever had a look to this kind of approach to metropolitan planning and to urban planning. Today we are going to talk about the cultural approaches to the methodologies in planning, the legal systems, and the different theories in planning. No? We must understand that we have, in Europe, the very important time in history was the year 9 AD, where the Germans, run by a general called Aymeric, won against the Romans a battle, the Teutoburg battle, Teutoburg forest battle, where the Romans lost 3 legions out of the 12 legions all the Roman Empire had. So 25% of the Roman Empire army was destroyed in that battle. And from that battle on, the Romans were never able again to control Germany. And they took the soldiers from England to Germany. And so England and Germany become not Romanized. The main countries Romanized then was France, Italy, Spain, Portugal, Romania, and so on. And that makes the big cleavage into Europe culture among the Latin cultures of Europe and the Anglo-Saxons, the Germanic cultures of Europe. And that is an extremely different approach to many, many things, as we are going to see, and among them about planning. And that has influenced the whole world in the way planning is done in the whole world. In the Latin versus the Anglo-Saxons, in social terms, the Latins have the imperial system of the emperor and all the hierarchical structure of the Roman Empire, and the Anglo-Saxons, Germans, have the tribal system of the different tribes which are free and interact. They battle each other and so on, but they have an independence among them. In legal terms, the Latin system comes out of the Roman law and later on of the Napoleonic Code. And the basic of that is that whatever is not allowed in the law is forbidden. On the other hand, the Anglo-Saxon system comes out of the common law. And the common law is the medieval law of England, built up as a disjointed approach of the tribal system. And the main concept is that whatever is not forbidden is allowed. So you have 2 systems of law. Whatever is not allowed is forbidden, and the other one, the common law, whatever is not forbidden is allowed. And that makes a completely different planning system and metropolitan system. The political development out of the Latin way of thinking and so on, Roman Empire and so on, was absolutism. Is the king that controls everything, and a hierarchical structure out of the king. The Anglo-Saxon is democracy. Even if you are the chief of a tribe and you don't decide what the tribe wants in a meeting with the 200 members of the tribe, you are not going to be chief for a long time. So really, the chiefs of the, even if they do not elect them, but they did in many occasions. You were not just chief because you were the son of the previous chiefs. If you don't do what the tribe wants, you are really out. So it's democracy, the system of the tribals. No? In religious terms, is the Roman Catholic Church, which the hierarchy coming out of the Roman Empire, and the popes knew very well that they were the inheritors of the Roman Empire and the emperors. In the tribal system, you have a scattered approach, personal approach, and you have many tribes of Protestantism churches that are free to interpret the Bible their own way, and that kind of freedom is more of the Anglo-Saxons and Germanic approach to religion, but as you see, is related to law and to the inheritance of the culture and the system of thinking of both of that. In the Latin system, the governance is more centralized, and many places in Latin system, if something is not approved by law, does not exist. The Anglo-Saxon Germanic system is more decentralized. If society thinks something is even more important than if it has been approved by a specific law. So you have a more of a decentralized and participatory approach into the Anglo-Saxon, and the governance in the Latin world is much more in that hierarchical and centralism. In philosophy, the Latins are more into Neoplatonicism, which is the idea, the search for the theory that really is comprehensive theory, holistic theory that reinterprets the whole thing. And the Anglo-Saxons are more into the empirical approach, which is really looking at what reality is and trying to make a theory out of what reality is, no? In perfect theory and perfect theory, as we have seen in some of Aristotle's and Plato and so on and so on. In mathematics, the Latins are more into the integral calculus, the integral, which is the holistic extrapolation of a curve, and the Anglo-Saxons are much more into the statistical calculus, which is really adding up the elements and creating a curve out of the addition of those elements. In art and technology, the Latins are in the holistic approach. The piece of art has to be perfect and complete, and the Anglo-Saxons are much into the empirical, pragmatical, incrementalist approach of art. In architecture, the Latins are more into neoclassicism, looking for that inheritance of the perfection of the Greek and classical architecture, and the Anglo-Saxon in the vernacular one. If we go into urban planning, we have the two lines of thinking that you see are cultural thinking that goes into the methodology of urban planning and metropolitan planning. We are not going to get into that because it's too long, but you can download that slide and you can have a look at it and you will see the difference between the two approaches. And in metropolitan planning, we do as well. The Latin approach of comprehensive, holistic approach is the metromatrix approach to metropolitan planning, and the Anglo-Saxon is more of the archipelago approach. So we have two theories that we have to blend. We have to make one out of those two theories. These theories in history have gone from 1912, that was the orbital system, then the hexagonal one of 1933 in Germany, then the 1977 one, the archipelago in Berlin and London, and the metromatrix approach in Madrid. And those two last ones are the ones which are alive nowadays, and we have to blend them. So you see this is the archipelago theory of London, of Oswald Hungers and Graham Shane, which is a set of islands in a territory, and you deal with them independently, one of each. But those set of islands create structures. You must understand that they are together because of a reason, and they create structures of a different level, and you have to work in metropolitan planning with all those structures. This is a plan from Graham Shane of all the centralities created around squares in London, but you must understand that those squares were previously in the 18th century, they were the gardens of palaces which were along the road, so they are not out of the blue. They are related to a structure that comes out of the road system of London with the palaces in front of those structure, with the garden behind. And when London developed in the 18th, 19th century, and you had housing estates around those gardens, at the end those gardens became the squares. So there is a structure underneath of that archipelago that we must understand, and that's what the metromatrix does. You have this map of London with those roads, and if you overimpose the palaces and the squares, you see that they are related to those roads and to that grade network. If you see this, you can say, well, it's just a bunch of leaves as a cloud of leaves, but you must understand that those leaves are part of a tree, and you have the trunk and you have the branches, and you must understand that trunk and the branches. So the leaves is the archipelago approach, the trunk and the branches is the metromatrix approach. And to show that, this is a slide from Graham Shane, the professor in Columbia University, and he provides these kind of units that create the archipelago of London, but you see the metromatrix provides that network of roads that really built up the system. You can see these units of the archipelago, but when you put them into the context of the metromatrix mechanism, immediately they become digits of that metromatrix, and you can deal with them as digits of that metromatrix. These are examples of the London archipelago. Those are the examples of the Madrid metromatrix BUD, Balanced Urban Development System. This is a map of London. You see the main roads there, and they can look very chaotic, but they are not. They have a structure. Because you have the river, you have the linearity of the river, and then you have the transversal linearity, and London has been building up its own mechanism within that structure, not consciously, but unconsciously knowing what to do. So when you have an archipelago, which is like a prehistoric village, that's fine. But at the end, when that village develops, it develops into a reticular system, because that's the way reticulars, that's the way that you can maximize the benefit of the infrastructure you have invested. You don't have missing spaces in between, that you have infrastructures and they are not used. So the reticle at the end ends up being the way you really work maximization. And that has been going on since prehistoric times to the most modern planning system like Milton Keynes in England. And you must understand that we have to do the best of both two. Madrid does. Madrid does have the gray and green infrastructure network at a metropolitan level, and then the different urban digits with the different municipalities in which each of them is different. So you work with both and you make the synthesis of the archipelago theory and the metro matrix. If we don't, the result is going to be the moss. You do nothing, so the city grows extensively like a metastasis, like a cancer that goes into the territory around, and that's most of what we are seeing in developing metropolis. So really we must understand the mechanisms to be able to provide a future for those metropolis that will be sustainable and equitable and efficient. You have then the two systems that we have talked about, and those two systems worked in different countries. You see the legal paradigms. There are many countries around the world that follow the Latin approach of the Roman law, the common law, mainly the places where the Latin countries like Spain, like France, have had colonies. And you have the other system, the common law system, which are mainly in the countries where the English in the 19th century created the English Empire. And they have provided that basic, and the new countries, independent, had followed that kind of legal framework, which is the framework of their constitutions. You see this, the two, you will be able to compare those two maps, the different legal systems and the colonizing systems of the 19th century, and to see the parallelism and the inheritance of those systems. And to finish, if you want to know what is the constitutional system of the country, you only have to look at the electrical plugs in your hotel. You will see the plugs that come out of the technology developed in Latin countries in Europe. To the left, that is a Napoleonic constitutional system. The plugs to the right that are derived from the English approach are the common law constitutions. So when you arrive to a country, you arrive to your hotel, you look at the electrical plugs in your room, you immediately can know what is the constitutional system of that country. Thank you very much. You can download these slides out of these links, and next time we will have the final presentation, which is the look forwards next steps into the Metropolitan discipline. Thank you very much.